I'm a big advocate for physical media in general because of being able to just revisit old classics in the highest quality. There's so many definitive editions, and I really love that from companies like Vinegar Syndrome, Blue Underground, Severin, of course, Arrow. They might find actors that haven't even talked about this movie in 20 years, and you get a new perspective on how something might have changed their lives. Of course, with the boost in quality, that's always a perk. And so that's why I'm a big fan of Blu-ray.
I guess when it comes to physical media, what I do enjoy the most is the actual ownership of this. The fact that a studio isn't going to take anything away from you. They're not going to come to your house. They're not going to knock on your door and say, you know, we want The Lady and the Highwayman back. They're not going to, why do I own that movie? They're not going to say that to you. I actually own movies in my collection that were recalled for one reason or another, that I was lucky enough to get on DVD or get on Blu-ray. Either a studio was supposed to put something out and then they weren't allowed to do it, or there was an issue with the movie or something like that. For whatever reason, stuff got recalled. I do have some of those in here. If I had digital copies of that, they would have just been completely pulled. They'd be gone forever. Or in the case of Disney, they may have edited some stuff that I own now. So again, when it comes to physical media, the reason why I love collecting it so much is just because, again, ownership. I have these movies. These movies are mine. Nobody's going to change them. Nobody's going to alter them. Nobody's going to take them away. A streaming service is not going to just randomly one day disappear. Movies aren't just going to randomly one day disappear because, again, a streaming service lost the rights to stream those movies.
I don't take it for granted that I could hold up physical media for all of these things that I've been lucky enough to be involved in. And, you know, we had an MTV version of Warren the Ape, but there is no Blu-ray or DVD available. MTV didn't want to do it. And that's sad, you know, because everything's streaming now, and that could be great, and that could be really convenient, but there's just something about physical media that I will be with until the day they stop making it. I mean, if you like a particular film, if you're a fan and you have passion and a film is more than a film to you and a film is part of your life, I mean, you want to represent that on a shelf. You can't do that with streaming. I mean, look at this. I love Tron. I love Tron Legacy. When Tron Legacy came out in 2010, that was a dream. I never thought there would be a sequel to Tron. And then look at this. You can't tell me that streaming has anything on something like this. This sits on my shelf. And every time I look at it, I'm just happy.
When I'm out hunting for physical media and I see something that I want, it's like a little jolt of electricity hits me and I just get very excited and I grab it and I don't even think about money. I just need to have this stuff. There's other people, the complete opposite. They don't want any possessions in their life. And I accept that and it's just not for me. I'm a person who wants to have a lot of stuff, but the more you collect, the longer it goes on, the more stuff accumulates, the more space it takes up. So you get a problem after a while where you just run out of space. There's just nowhere left to keep any more stuff. And it starts to get disorganized. And that's where I am in my life now, where I really just don't have any organization. And that's a dream of mine, to one day have everything put in perfect order. It's going to be a lot of fun doing that one day.
But my thing I always loved about physical media is just making it still alive out there, showing you can still collect really cool things if you can find them, especially with tapes and that kind of thing. Even retro toys, there's Boglins up over there, and old school posters, But yeah, I think with physical media is just great. I just love the whole thing, the whole nostalgia vibe of it. From me going to a video store, and going there as a kid to an early teenager, looking for like horror tapes in the horror section and seeing what kind of cool stuff is there to get, and having that kind of fun vibe. So I like to do that in my home, and I like to portray it out there in my videos and what I like to promote on my Instagrams and things, and Facebook and stuff, of just like showing you can do like all this cool stuff. And with my channel too, I get stuff from PR companies to review, like Blu-rays and 4Ks and DVDs and that kind of thing, which I like to show people out there you can still buy this stuff. I think it's just better to have it physically instead of depend on digital format, like the streaming services that are out there, which are cool, but a lot of that stuff can be edited down, or they can take the movies away without you even knowing about it. I like to have it physically on hand, so I know I always own it and I always have it, and it's like in my collection. Plus, you get the great cover art and all that cool stuff. It could be unedited, like uncut versions of it, and you get the cool raw form of it, which I love too. Is like the trailers they show at the beginning of the VHS tapes, because it's like that going back in time, and especially with tapes, you get that it's like stuck during that time period. You get all kinds of cool stuff you might get in those trailers before the movie starts, which is kind of really cool.
There was In Cold Blood, The Boston Strangler, Helter Skelter, and now Savage Weekend. Savage Weekend is not a film for the whole family. It's only for those who can stand to be terrified. Savage Weekend.
A way to look at it also is streaming is a format. A lot of people don't realize that. Streaming is just, DVDs of like the next DVD. And what I mean by that is, give it, 10, 20 years, however many years from now, streaming, the way we think of it today, will not be a thing. That'll be something different. Streaming will be something completely different than we even imagine right now. Again, just a couple years ago, we were downloading movies. We needed room on our computer to download a digital copy from Warner Brothers or from iTunes. We needed to like download them and store them. Now, of course, that is all in the cloud. It's on some magical place out there in the land of the internet. So, that's the way it is now. Again, what's it going to be like in 10, 20 years? What are we going to be looking at? So my question is, all these streaming services, will they still be around? Are they still going to be a thing? If a streaming service that you buy into goes away, what happens to those movies? Do they transfer over to some other streaming service? Are they just gone forever? Who knows? Or let's say, the way Disney streams stuff right now, let's say in 20 years from now, they stream stuff differently. Are you still going to have that stuff? Are they going to transfer all the movies over? Are they going to say, okay, you have 1,000 movies in our streaming service, but now we're not going to stream this way. We're going to stream this way now. It's going to be something completely different. It's something we're not even thinking of at this moment. Think outside the box. It could be anything. Maybe it's implanted into your brain. Maybe it's holographic. Who knows what it might be?
I think physical media, the nostalgia of it was a big thing for me. I grew up in a house full of VHS tapes. Cabinets full of movies, whether they be Disney movies or my parents had, more PG-13 R-rated stuff. But I was always surrounded by movies. I always loved movies since a young age.
Toxie, you bad boy, come, get out of there. Sean C. Phillips and Tony Newton. You want to know why hard media is important? It's certainly important to Troma Entertainment, 47-year-old oldest independent studio in the world, because how many cinephiles would never have discovered our movies, right? And in fact, many movies that nobody knows about are in the Rowan collection, R-O-A-N. Wonderful movies, beautifully restored by us for the Rowan collection. And then, of course, if it wasn't for this, VHS, we would probably have long gone, because Troma was perhaps the first movie studio to embrace this wonderful new form and put us on the map, because we had a big library of company-produced movies, and we got in ahead of the studios, and the public began to know us. And then finally here are the beautiful DVDs, Blu-rays, and the point is that the First Amendment is very important, and due to the consolidation of media, the public has been denied a free, diverse, and democratic variety of voices. And thanks to Hard Media, the Trauma team gets to get out there and have millions of fans. If were it not for Hard Media, Trauma would long gone, and I'd be pushing a plow somewhere. Thank you.
When you think about physical media, for me, obviously, we're going back to the time of the VHS originally, and then on to DVD. But I always loved owning physical copies of things. You know, when I grew up as a boy, if you saw something on TV, you didn't get to see it again until it came on television again. And the same in the cinema. If you went to see a movie in the cinema, you didn't get to see that again until it appeared on TV. And if it did appear on TV, then you know, you'd wonder if it was going to appear on one of the other channels if you were really excited about seeing that particular movie or that particular TV show. But then, of course, with the advent of VHS, we had a VHS player, not a Betamax. We always joked about the Betamax, like you had to pour water into them, you know, and then heat it up, and steam would rise, and eventually it would work. Which of course is a joke, but they were very big, cumbersome machines, and we got one of the latest kind of streamlined VHS players, and that was always exciting because you never knew what was going to come out, and of course, you know, this is during the time of the video nasties, and so you get a lot of the Italian genre pictures coming out: Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, Bava. You know, it was a very exciting time, especially if you're interested in horror or the supernatural. So my brothers and I always kind of ate that up. But a very interesting thing happened in the very early 80s was a friend of the family turned up, and he was a little bit of a shady character, you know, and he was kind of going, "Oh, I could get you this movie or that movie," and we were kind of joking, going, "Oh yeah, could you get us E.T. Or Poltergeist?" And of course, neither of these films had come out in the cinema. And then very strangely, a week later, he turned up with 2 VHS tapes, and they were blank, and he said, "Okay, let's watch these." And it was Poltergeist and E.T., and neither of which had appeared in the cinema yet. And I never got to the bottom of how he did this or who his contacts were. But when you're a boy, you don't really think about that. All you're thinking is, you know, I'm getting to see E.T. and Poltergeist before anybody else. You know, and to this day, I have no idea how he did it. It turned out he was a criminal. He disappeared out of our lives pretty quickly, thank God. But you know, it was very exciting to be able to watch these films, and like I said, we never thought about the the legal implications or how he came across them. But you know, so things like that were very exciting. You got to see these movies, and then you got to see other movies that were kind of illicit. You know, we shouldn't really be watching these really, you know, hardcore horror movies. But they were usually very atmospheric films, you know, again, like Suspiria and Inferno, and even early pictures by Argento, The Bird of the Crystal Plumage, Four Flies in Grey Velvet, etc. You know, so, you know, it was a great education for Italian cinema and British horror cinema and American cinema.
I collect pretty much just DVD because that's kind of the one. I didn't grow up on DVD. I grew up on VHS, but like on the tail end of it was obviously DVD because I'm not that old. I'm only 27. And so DVD was like huge on the come up whenever I was growing up.
Listen to audio commentary. Choose from features like director's notes, behind the scenes footage, trailers, and more.
We would go to the movie stores and whatnot, and it would be kind of a mixture of the two, VHS and DVD, but VHS started to kind of fall out and DVD stuck around. So I pretty much, when I started collecting, really, it was DVD that was mostly out there, so I picked up on DVD. Blu-ray, not so much. I don't really care about the Blu-ray thing because I care so much about VHS tapes, and I'm not really into like the whole quality thing, like picture quality and sound quality. I like a lot of like shot on video DVDs and whatnot, and yeah, so Blu-ray really didn't really do it for me, but DVD was the one that I stuck with and really enjoyed. I wish I could have more VHS tapes, but it's just a little bit, you know, pricey, and I don't have enough room for that, but I do like VHS a lot.
And then, of course, DVDs arrived, and then suddenly you've got not only do you have this array of fantastic materials coming out, but you have the special features, which was incredibly exciting. You kind of go, oh, here's a documentary on how they made this particular film. Here's interviews with the cast and crew. Here are insights into the filmmaking structure and production with key figures within the production that you never would have heard of before unless there was a very specific documentary made, by the BBC or ITV at the time. So, that was another very exciting advance that emerged with DVD and then Blu-ray, of course. But owning physical media, I think, has always been a very exciting thing. It's one thing to view something or to have it, digitally there and you can download it, but to actually have a physical copy that you can hold and, open, there's a booklet in it, and, look at the artwork and put it on your shelf and kind of go, yeah, I'll take that title down and I'll revisit that again. It's not quite the same with digital download, video on demand, even though that's the way it's all moving. And I think it's really going to become a collector's paradise for people who want to own physical media going forward. But I think it's very important.
And with DVDs and Blu-rays, you got the cool commentary, behind the scenes footage, things like that, But yeah, I just kind of go through some of my stuff right now in my collection, but I just love to portray, to get the physical media out there, collect it, get it. I like to inspire people to get it and that kind of thing. But let's go look at my collection. I'll talk a little bit more while I do that, but let's go check out some of my stuff right now. We go in my living room, got my posters up there, original Popcorn poster. And start with my favorite stuff I like to collect, which is my VHS videotapes, and move on to my DVDs and Blu-rays, which I love too. But this is definitely my favorite stuff to collect is my videotapes, my VHSs, which I've been collecting for a long time now, since I was a kid, and things like that. One of my first ones I ever got as a kid was Scream Greats. I bought this one later on, but I remember I bought this originally at it wasn't going out of business, but it was like a Sears outlet center. I bought it was for a few bucks. My grandma about learning how to do makeup effects. That's what I thought this was, and I realized that this guy, Tom Savini, did all these amazing effects, and so I learned off, him, about movie effects and things like that, and all that kind of deal. This is a cool one too. From speaking of makeup effects, this is a Dick Smith how-to. What's cool is it's like a makeup booklet. It's attached to it up there. It's attached to the tape. Is this makeup booklet? So it's really, really neat. But it's collecting tapes. This is a really cool one with the embossed cover art of Black Roses. Clamshells up over here. So a couple rare ones. Is the first shot in video movie Sledgehammer. I got 2 of these for an amazing cheap price. One, I think, for only $5. Other one was for free. So those are real rare. And this is a good one up here. Is the Werewolves on Wheel Unicorn video. Those have amazing cover art. As Unicorn, I got another Unicorn one up here. Grave of the Vampire. Look at that art. That's so amazing. It's all about getting the physical stuff, because you get the great artwork with it, especially on videotapes. You get the really cool artwork, and I get some things up over here. Something weird videos, prisms, kind of everywhere. Old media is the original media right here. And before they had Meta, these are some pretty rare ones up over there, like that one. Albano's a pretty cool weird flick. And then up over here, some other kind of neat stuff, some Vestrons, and that kind of thing. They're like unicorn slip cases. These are one of these tapes where it's the cover looks amazing, but the movie's kind of crappy. That's what that is. And get the classic shot video one. Video violence. Look at that cover art, amazing. And real quick before I forget, let's go look above my shelves. It's got an old school original Addams Family cereal box. I always like weird nostalgia stuff like that, Silent Night, Deadly Night figure, Boglin's toy. She's had one of those as a kid, but I got this one later on, a few years back, all complete in the box. There's another rare, cool tape, Blood Frames. Look at that cover art. Really cool, rare one. This is kind of a cool game, Shrieks and Creaks. The talking game was like a cassette back in the 80s. I had that since I was a kid, that kind of thing. But let's go, just my tapes. This is my favorite things I like to collect are the tapes. And there's some stuff in the bottom over there. A little Freddy glove, Friday the 13th type stuff. And these are some pretty cool ones, like AIP, a really great low budget bad company. And it's these ones are pretty cool too. A company called City Lights, a lot of cool weird ones, sort of shot on video type stuff.
There's a rare cool one, Hollow Gate. And this is a pretty cool company. If you ever find this stuff, definitely get these. These are pretty hard to find. LA Crackdown. They put out a lot of neat, weird action horror flicks.
This is my collection of what I have currently as far as big box horror movies go, including a custom death doll, which has never been released in America. Of course, I got my autographed copy of Hard to Die, autographed by Deborah Dutch, who I've worked with in quite a few of my films, actually. Make Them Die Slowly, Mondo Magic, Rabid, my autographed double feature by Fred Olen Ray of Scalps and the Slayer. We got Shocking Asia. We have an import version from the UK, actually, of Slumber Party Massacre. Two Faces of Evil, which is one not only of the first horror movies I ever bought, but the first big box horror movie I ever bought. I bought it at a pawn shop, actually, in Falls City, Nebraska. And then this is actually one of those reissues from Full Moon that I bought at San Diego Comic-Con last year. It's White Slave.
Shriek, If You Know What I Did Last Friday the 13th. Still sealed. I can watch it on a bunch of other formats. But it's just nice having, like, the air from when this was produced just in there. It's like, if you open it, it completely loses that value. I don't know. It's just something about that is fun. That it's like a treasure.
So this is the bulk of my collection. I find it weird that collectors don't really agree necessarily on a uniform standard for how you organize your movies. And when you have a couple hundred movies, you know, people will organize them lots of different ways, by actors, by genres. But I feel like once you get to that 500 plus, you got to start doing alphabetical. So all my movies are alphabetical. We start over here, we have TV series, and then 4K, Blu-ray, and then DVD.
Welcome to my physical media collection, my movie room as I like to call it. So you can see there, it says Ryan's Movies, because this is kind of my getaway with all of my physical media, things for me to watch. I'll just give you a quick overview of the kind of things that I collect as a movie collector. I collect a bit of everything. We can start off right here. As you can see, I love VHS tapes. I don't have too many anymore, but I still have quite a few. This wall right here is dedicated to my love for Universal Monsters. And when I was a kid, I used to mow lawns, and I would save up my money each week to buy a videotape. And most of these tapes here are my original ones from when I was a kid. And back then you'd have to go somewhere like Suncoast Video or something like that to get a tape like this, and you'd pay $20 or $25 for it. So kind of some prized pieces in my collection right there. Not that they're worth money, but to me they're important just because I love them so much. So love that display. And I even have a closet here that houses a bunch of my DVDs, and I have everything kind of sorted. And you can see in here, this is kind of drama and action films going to sci-fi. We have some TV series over here, and then we step in and we have some comedy films over there. So yeah, that's kind of just my overflow closet of movies there. And the main genre that I probably have the most love for, definitely have the most love for, is horror. And this whole wall here are horror DVDs and Blu-rays. And they are by, I kind of categorize things in strange ways. It's just how I like to do it. So as you can see here, I've got some tabs like Little Monsters movies, Crocs and Gators, or maybe lycanthropes like werewolf films. And you can see up here, I've got vampires and different things like that, snakes. So I love, and we have robots down here and creepy dolls. Gotta have creepy dolls in your collection. So I organize things like that. I also organize things by company, like Full Moon, which is right here. So I like organizing things that way as well. Moving on over to this wall, you can see, big fan of Arrow Video and Scream Factory, which I really think these boutique titles are what keep physical media collecting alive, especially for us horror fans. You can see we go down into Scream Factory there. And then, just some other shots here of how love Steven Spielberg, have all his things separated. superhero stuff, and then some more stuff over here by company like Wild Eye Releasing and things like that. So yeah, I take a lot of pride in how I organize things, and the cool thing is it's organized kind of how I like it. You know, it's when I come in here and try to find something, I know exactly where it is. And you can see some more shelves back here. Big Godzilla fan, have all my Godzilla films there.
So here I got the TV series. It's kind of ridiculous amount of TV series, but I feel like, you know, a lot of people like to stream their shows, but with the explosion of streaming services, and you never know what show is going to be on what service, or it's going to be available. If you have a show you love, you got to own them.
So basically, we collect a lot of movies. Basically, DVDs, Blu-rays, 4K, TV shows, movies, basically just
anything.
All physical media of any kind. You know, we even collect CDs and comic books and
vinyls
stuff. Vinyls, yeah, but our main thing is definitely Blu-rays and DVDs.
You didn't think we were done, did you? This is the rest of the 4,000 movie collection. I think most people, you know, could store 1,000 to 2,000 movies in their house. When you get to the 4,000 mark, you gotta have some space.
So this is the movie room. I got DVDs on both walls, this one and that one. This is obviously the bigger side, but this was the original casing that I had for this in about 2011. I got this from my grandparents, and it was only filled up to about halfway, and now over the about 10-year period I've accumulated all this stuff. It's not a ton, but it's got some gems in there, so that's what I'm proud of. I'll go through a couple titles with you. This movie right here, first and foremost, The Evil Dead, is the one that started it all. This is the one that got me into the collecting, and I wouldn't be here with all this if it wasn't for this movie. It's the best movie ever made. And then I'll just go through. I usually like the lower budget stuff, like Death Metal Zombies. It's not something you see very often. I'm really excited about that one, like having that in the collection. That's a cool one. I got a bunch of them, especially like when it comes to like trauma. Have a ton of those, brain damage films, stuff like that. That's all the good stuff. Here, get out of here. And then, yeah, just like this one right here. This is a really good one. Bone Sickness. Gotta love that flick. Really gory, fun movie. Blown, about a killer sex doll. Stuff like this is why I'm in this business. You know, things like Death Row Diner. It's a really cool one. That's actually a boot, but that's okay. And then one of my favorites that I think should be in every horror collection, but it doesn't seem to be talked about enough, is Skinned Deep. This movie right here is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Yeah, dude. It's a crazy one about this guy with a bear trap for a mouth that's killing this family. It's pretty sick. But yeah, this is pretty much what it is. This is my manhood right here.
There was something of having physical releases for movies like Scary Movie or Shriek, If You Know What I Did Last Friday the 13th, that made me want to spoof the spoofs. So at 12 years old, I was making movies like Sunday the 15th and A Nightmare on My Street. Hand drew the covers for the VHSs and then poorly designed the DVD covers as well. But there was something about the movie not being complete until it was put in a physical form. Something like a VHS or a DVD transfer. Being able to throw that on the shelf was almost like, okay, it's complete, it's done.
I think physical media will always be around. There will always be people who want to own something that they can hold and they can touch and they can play this movie whenever they want, and there's no rental of it. And that's the way I am. I just feel like, you know, if I wake up at 3 a.m. and I want to watch some Italian cannibal movie, I know I've got them all and I can watch whatever I want. And some of this stuff is not available on streaming, so there's really no other choice but to own it if you want to watch it. And that goes for all the other things that I collect. It's just kind of putting all these pieces of a puzzle together for me. I just want to have complete collections of things. So I love early 80s horror movies, and so I want every one of them in my collection, and then I want the soundtrack to them, and then I want the movie poster for them. So it just kind of really goes back to just this love of horror that I have, and by collecting, it somehow is like a little bit of almost my friends or family to me. So I will continue doing that.
When it comes to physical media, like what do I collect, I pretty much mainly focus on DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4K.
I'm very much into collecting different types of cinematic media. I'm big into the history of different types of cinematic media. Anything that a studio put their property on to release to the public, whether it was in like a kind of more of a toy sort of form, like the Fisher-Price movie viewer or something like that, or, you know, something like 4K or Blu-ray or something like that. So I'm very much into collecting that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm so much into collecting that kind of stuff that I built myself kind of a little museum down here, 3 display cases full of, I believe, there are 41 different types of cinematic media in here, ranging from, you know, again, the typical stuff, DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks, Laserdiscs, to things like Video 8, VCC, which was like a German type of format, Beta, HD DVDs, I don't even know what else is in here, PVD, UMD, there is CBHD, which was China's like answer to Blu-ray in the beginning of the whole format war. There is HD VMD, which was another sort of competitor between Blu-ray and HD DVD that never actually really technically got a release, but I have some of those. So that, again, that's something I'm very much into. It's just the history of cinematic media. And I love all these different formats. Some of them, you know, were very successful. Some of them were obviously complete failures. And some of them, like things, for instance, like Superbit DVDs kind of were precursors to Blu-rays, and even 3D DVDs were precursors to 3D Blu-rays. So all kinds of cool stuff like that. So again, that's something I'm very much into, is just the collecting of cinematic media.
I've been collecting physical media since I was a kid. Little Mermaid was one of my first VHSs, and the box had a hidden little penis on it. I didn't notice that till I was an adult. And Home Alone, my VHSs, they've got so much wear and tear. And I collected every Disney movie in the clamshell cases, so those were really cool. I loved having those. And when DVDs came out, I started getting everything. I rebought everything I already had on VHS. It was so fun when they would put seasons of TV shows out, like shows that I missed, and it was such a great way to catch up.
I like to collect a bunch of different media, including VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, HD DVD, UMD, VCD, movie CD, even Blu-ray, 4K. Even have some 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, as you can see behind. Oh my God, there's more? That's a lot of stuff.
My earliest recollection as far as starting to buy physical media was back in 2008 when I first started working at Blockbuster. I remember there was like the popular movies they would get in stacks, and once the movie was not as popular anymore, they would make like a big, like a bin in the middle of the store with like a bunch of movies in there that were either, I think, 3 for $15 for the popular ones, and I think 5 for $25, I think, for the less popular ones. Maybe the pricing is probably way off, but I remember that. And I first watched Repo, the Genetic Opera, for the first time, and it blew my mind. And I saw it in that stack of, I think, 3 for $15 or whatever, however much it was. And I was like, I need to own this because I want to be able to revisit this movie whenever I want. So getting that meant I have to get 2 other ones, and I honestly don't remember what the other 2 were, but that's my earliest recollection of buying DVDs and starting a collection.
As you can see behind me, I have quite a few VHS, and then over here on my left I have quite a few DVDs. Upstairs I also have quite the assortment of Blu-rays too. Over here off screen you can't see, but I do have a bunch of Laserdiscs.
Physical media that I collect, mostly Blu-rays and DVDs. But if they don't have on Blu-rays, then I got no choice to buy on DVDs. But I also have some of VHS, and I also have 4K. So I pretty much collect Blu-rays, DVDs, 4K, and VHS.
VHS will always be my favourite format, my favourite physical media. Don't get me wrong, I love Blu-rays, I adore Blu-rays and DVDs. Because of the special features, they're amazing. But I mean, with me, I'll try and get a film on every format. So if I'll get it on VHS, I'll get it on Blu-ray, I'll get it on DVD, even 4K. Because you love that film so much, you want every edition. And nowadays with slip covers and holographic covers and steelbooks, I think collectors like myself just want every available format of their favourite films.
Obviously, I'm kind of also going for like a video store setup with the Blu-ray marquees, which I got from a movie stop that was closing down in Orlando, as well as some security cases, just in case those pesky teens want to try and run past my metal detector. Not this time.
So this is the collection. I pretty much collect DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks, 3D Blu-rays. I have a couple of the Laserdiscs, VHS, and Beta as well.
And I've always been a huge collector of physical media. It's always been something that I've been into. And I started, I saw someone on YouTube, though, showing a video just showing, like, their collection. Their movies were all throughout their house and their drawers and everything. And that's what kind of inspired me to show my collection online. I do a weekly video series on the YouTube channel Cool Duder. And I basically go out every Tuesday to, Target, Best Buy, Walmart, the main stores, and go around and show the new releases. And then in my video as well, I, review and talk about the titles that have come out, and I give my opinions on them. I talk about the Blu-rays and all that kind of stuff. But I actually started doing YouTube video reviews, I think around 2006, 2007 I believe it was 2007 when I first started. And I started posting, though, videos showing my collection. I did a whole video just going around my whole collection, showing all the things that I had, and it started getting a lot of attention online, and everybody seemed to really like it. And, and I realized that there was a huge community of DVD and, collectors out there that wanted to see people's collection. So then from there I started doing videos called My DVD Collection Update, and I basically was doing those every single 2 weeks, and it was me going and showing the new movies that I picked up over the last 2 weeks, and I would just basically hold the movies up. I would talk a little bit about them, say if I thought they were good or worth picking up, and what I thought about them and all that kind of stuff, and I can continued on doing those until today, and I'm still doing them now, doing videos every single Tuesday, going and showing the new releases that came out, going to the stores, showing the, exclusive editions, because that's the one thing that I really feel like really keeps physical media alive.
I promised myself when Blu-ray came out that I wouldn't buy every single horror movie on Blu-ray, but unfortunately, I am falling victim because there's so much cool stuff coming out on Blu-ray. They're just falling everywhere. And I got hundreds more upstairs.
Sausage Streets. You guys know this is Linda Blair movie from Code Red. It's out of print. I got it with slipcover, and she signed it. So this is pretty cool. I flipped the cover, but this is pretty cool. She signed it. So the prices went up.
Right now, rent any movie from Blockbuster and you get a kids film absolutely free. Great news for grown-ups. Make it a Blockbuster night.
I wanted to talk about a couple of releases, while I have the platform. First one here, Weekend of Horrors, Fangoria Horror Convention. Being someone that occasionally does attend horror conventions, this is the epitome of nostalgia. I'm very happy to have this in my collection. But this was only released on VHS. Beautiful cover art. It's just something that I really enjoy, having, owning, and put out by media. distributed in 1986. You know, it's just one of those really cool pieces. This is kind of interesting. I found this at Goodwill. This is an edited version of Mortal Kombat. There's a couple of other films like this that are edited versions of, you know, films that could easily, you know, be PG if like, you know, one curse word was taken out, or, you know, like, I don't know, a scene with a scantily clad lady was edited out. But I thought that this was really neat. The idea of seeing a family version of Mortal Kombat kind of struck me as funny. You know, I mentioned that I like to collect cartoons. Mighty Max is something I grew up watching, and I have a couple different episodes of Mighty Max on VHS, but it's never been released to DVD. I rarely ever see these tapes, and that's just something I really enjoy, you know, watching. I collected the toys, you know, watched the show. I believe it was on UPN. You know, pretty nostalgic. Another one that I grew up watching that I had a really hard time finding, found this in a Facebook group. This is Masked Rider. This is a failed Power Rangers spinoff. This was supposed to be basically America's version of Kamen Rider, and this is actually sealed. I haven't watched it yet, but this was a special two-part miniseries that I remember thinking as a kid that this was so cool because, you know, Power Rangers are cool, therefore anything that's similar to Power Rangers is cool. So of course Saban's Masked Rider, you know, is definitely cool. And then last but not least, whenever I first got into collecting, this was one of my holy grails, and I just randomly found it at Goodwill one day. This is a cartoon. It's called Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. And what this is basically a PSA with all of your favorite cartoon characters telling you not to do drugs. So basically it's just a huge like dare video put out by McDonald's and Disney. It's funny because it says Buena Vista rather than Disney.
Primarily Blu-ray 4K in steelbook form if it's available. And now I'm starting to get into media books, so look out, bank account.
Steelbooks are my favorite physical media of all time, especially ones with lenticular. I like lenticular steelbooks. You can't pass up on the lenticularness on a steelbook. That is my ultimate combination right there. Just combine both of them together equals heaven. It's heaven for me. I absolutely love it. So Blu-rays and steelbooks, 4K steelbooks, lenticular steelbooks, doesn't matter. Just give me a steelbook because most of the time I just love their cover artwork. I love the feel of them. They're very different.
So I collect Laserdiscs. Laserdiscs are a optical video format that was primarily popular in Asia. It was introduced in the 70s and it lasted way up until the early 2000s was when the last disc was produced. So in some arguments, you could make a strong argument to say that Laserdisc has been the longest lived media format of all time. Like what has lasted longer than 30 years? I don't know. But it looks like this. Let's take a look. Let's pull it out of here. We got a little LA Story with Steve Martin. Great movie. It looks a lot like a record. And that's kind of what drew me to it because I have sort of a fascination with 12-inch discs. I'm also a DJ, and so I have a large record collection. And I'm also, really into movies, and this seemed like a natural progression. Now, most folks, when they get into collecting Laserdiscs, they do out of motivation to acquire one of two things. One, the original Star Wars trilogy. The original Star Wars trilogy without any of the special edition stepping on Jabba's tail or the Cantina singing monster lady, all of that stuff that Lucas did to it to like sort of put some extra sauce on the movie. It's the only way you can get that without those additions and in the highest possible quality.
Alright guys, so this is my physical media collection. It begins with my 4K UHDs, which I own approximately 150 titles on right now. It's the newest format, the smallest format in my collection. Most of what's here are either steelbooks or upgrades I was able to get for a really good price to upgrade my Blu-ray or DVD. Like I said, all sorts of steelbooks, and then on the bottom we have DVDs, there's spillover from my other shelf, as well as some video games. And you guys can tell by the top shelf, I am a bit of a Back to the Future fan, probably one of my top 5 movies of all time, so I have some Back to the Future pieces in my collection. Then we move on to the Blu-rays, and if you guys couldn't tell by the shirt, I am a Blu-ray snob. It is my favorite format, superior sound and picture in my opinion, over DVD, over VHS. So I have approximately 1,950 Blu-rays in my collection, all sorts of stuff. I have digibooks, the Streetcar Named Desire, a lot of steelbooks, probably a couple hundred at this point. This is La La Land, my Manta Lab steelbook, numbered to 700, one of my favorites in my collection. Freaks and Geeks, I have numerous TV series, this probably being one of my favorite I own. Mini steelbooks, there's Hobbs and Shaw. I have a few other mini steelbooks on the top here, along with DVD screener of La La Land, VHS screener copy of Rounders, and a DivX copy of Rounders. Rounders is my favorite movie of all time. And then some other collector's editions here. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Goonies, The Planet of the Apes head, Home Alone tin, Big Lebowski, the bowling ball set, all sorts of stuff. A UK Back to the Future VHS. And then last but not least is the DVDs. Approximately 350 DVDs in my collection. A lot of what's here is stuff that was never released to Blu-ray, or stuff that is out of print, extremely expensive on Blu-ray, that I would like to upgrade to at some point. But at least I own it physically on some format so I can watch it at any point in time. And that's it for the media collection, guys.
My collection is maybe 1,100 discs, or 1,100 movies rather. I probably watch one a week, I would say is kind of what the average is. I haven't watched them all. I don't think I ever will, because there's a bunch of crap. But there's also some amazing stuff.
Some of the physical media that I collect includes vinyls. Most of them that I love are soundtrack vinyls. Some of my favorites, Romeo and Juliet, Baz Luhrmann, love this one, lots of Radiohead. We have, this is controversial, 31, Rob Zombie. Great film, and a lot of them I think have like a nostalgia vibe like physical media does. Batman, which is pretty telling. Vinyls are a little bit different in why people actually collect them, unlike VHS and like DVDs and things like that. It's not like the quality is kept in that product or that piece of media, but vinyls have superior quality to CDs or, you know, streaming music online on Spotify or Pandora. So I feel like this is really justified, and I feel like people have to collect these kind of things, and they're such treasures. I love when they do limited edition vinyls. I have a great one on Us, which I'll pull out in a sec, which is beautiful, and it's just such a cool thing to have in your house. Something that you can actually chuck on and have that whole experience with. I love my Alien films as well, so I've got this one. And then you've got the classics that are like, you know, Rosemary's Baby, which are very much all about that signature score, which I love this one for. And I also have Elephant Man, which I bought this one secondhand. I think secondhand media is really cool. The fact that people are recycling and reusing media and it just goes to a new loving home is really cool, and I love this film. As mentioned, one of my favorite vinyls is Us. I loved this original score, and it really shows, even though it is a nostalgia factor to have physical media, this is new. Yeah, it went through a little bit of a rough and tumble, but it's new, and it's something that I treasure so much just to have in my possession, just to put on a shelf and look at, let alone listen to. But what I really love about this is it's a limited edition release, and they just go through so much work to make it so beautiful, and they put so much effort into it. So owning something like this just adds to the whole experience of the film, which you don't think that anything can add to it, but owning stuff sometimes does. Some other movie vinyls that I absolutely love include Phantom of the Opera, which I'm obsessed with, and another one is The Babadook, which I love so much, and you should see the actual vinyl. How insane is that? And if that wasn't enough, it's also a pop-up book, which I love. They put so much love and care into this, and it's just something so great that the fans can hold on to. Some of my earliest memories of being a kid was going into a VHS store and actually seeing the posters of the films and not being able to read the blurbs on the back and choosing films like that, and I think it made me a very visual person. And now sometimes I'll see a cover which I remember from when I was a kid and going to the video store, and like the card of Stigmata, I always remembered that and how creepy it was when I was a kid, and it's so interesting how that can stick in your head, and it's such a different attachment you have to films. I mean, I do miss it. I don't think anyone doesn't miss going to the video store and picking out a movie that way. It was such a ritual, going in there with your friends on a Friday night and kind of fussing over what you wanted to watch. It's so different now when everything is just so easily and readily available for you to just press play. You don't have that moment of getting back into the car, driving home, finally getting home, putting on some popcorn and eating it at the same time. It was such a ritual. Now I can go through 4 or 5 movies a day just watching them on my computer. It's crazy. It's a big difference.
So if you think about vinyl records, that is a relic of the past to most people my age. If you went back 10 years, most of us had never even seen a vinyl record or played one. And now I know personally, I've started to collect vinyl records. I love having movie soundtracks and old classic albums on vinyl because audiophiles and people who really love the music have this feeling that vinyl sounds better than a CD. It sounds better than a compressed audio stream from something like Spotify or iTunes or Apple Music. And that's the highest quality, and you own it. You physically own it, and nobody can take that away. Nobody can remove it from a service, remove it from your library. You own that music. And there's something nostalgic about that as well.
I collect horror movies on both DVD and Blu-ray, but mostly Blu-ray simply because you usually find more special features. And with a lot of like Blu-ray companies re-releasing certain movies, it's almost the only way to get some movies. Some movies go from VHS, skip DVD, sometimes you can find some VOD options, but the Blu-ray, that's the good stuff because that's where you can get all these behind the scenes, these little featurettes, director's commentary with casts, just like retrospectives and deeper dives into the movies that we love. And that's one of the reasons why I collect Blu-rays and DVDs in general, simply because of nostalgia. There's some kind of nostalgia attached in most cases. Obviously with new releases, I go for the Blu-ray regardless. But for the older releases that are being, restored, put onto Blu-ray with new special features, I just like having stuff that I used to like as a kid, and even finding 80s and 90s horror flicks that maybe I never even heard of, but still capture that same quality that I enjoy. That is somewhat nostalgic, even if I haven't even seen the films. There's some old school practical effects. There's different movie making tricks that are kind of lost in some of the new modern movies that we watch today.
Nostalgia absolutely does play a point to this. I think anybody born in the 80s or even probably the 70s, that any kid that grew up in a video store, I think that that's part of this. I think that collecting is part of the video store, experience, creating your own video store within your house. People tell you all the time, you're not going to be able to watch all that. Why do you buy all that? You're wasting your money, yada, yada, yada. But there's kind of something special about walking into your own room and having your own video store and tons of titles that you can just grab off the shelf at any time. So there's definitely a nostalgia factor. This sounds kind of weird, but some of the best memories I have are, being a little kid and riding up on the bike to the video store with your friends, or having your mom convincing your mom to drive you to a video store that was halfway across town so you could look for some crummy B movie, that no one else knew about. So those are kind of fond experiences. It's definitely a nostalgia, and it is also not just nostalgia, it's obsessive compulsiveness all at the same time.
I'm a huge fan of VHS. I think it was VHS, it was back in the early 80s, It was back going to the video shop on a Friday night with all the family, and you're renting these titles. I remember walking in and we got our video card, and it was like a portal to another world. Do you know what I mean? It's like literally you had access to these films that you couldn't get. You couldn't have access to these on terrestrial TV because they weren't on there. Films would come out of the cinema, you know, you wouldn't have access to these films. It was like a different world. And VHS, I just love everything about VHS. I love magnetic tape. I love everything about this. I love the whole action of grabbing it off the shelf, you know, grabbing your sight off the shelf, get this, put it in the video, ching, ching, you know, pressing play. There's this connection when you own physical media, when you actually own physical media, and you know, it's just it's something else. It's a connection when you own physical media. It's having that connection with it.
People ask me all the time, why do you need all this stuff? And I think part of it is that feeling of nostalgia, that feeling when you were a kid and you were scared but fascinated with the horror movies. And by the mid-'80s, I started working in a video rental store, and that's where I got my collection started. I would bring home movies that were ex-rentals, and by the late 80s, I had a pretty large collection of VHS tapes. But of course, Laserdisc came out, and then I switched to Laserdisc, and I started buying hundreds of Laserdiscs. They were very expensive and heavy, but it felt like a big upgrade. And you know, when DVD hit, I thought, this is it. Nothing will ever get better than DVD. So I bought thousands of DVDs, thousands. But I love the feeling of being able to hold a VHS or hold a DVD and be able to put it in your player, and it's on your shelf, and you can look at the artwork, you can look at the packaging. It feels like it's really right there. And I never get that feeling when it comes to streaming movies. I always feel like I'm watching somebody else's collection instead of mine. So I watch streaming video for like mainstream Hollywood films, something I want to watch once but not watch again. Most of the movies that I love and that I collect aren't even on any streaming service. So there's really no other way to see them.
In the early days of DVD too, they had all these kind of promotions when you would buy a player. They'd be like, oh, when you get this player, sign up for this and you get like 7 free movies. And it was like some of the big studios would do it. And it would be like movies like Michael and the Lost in Space remake and a whole bunch of different things. And I always remember those. And they took forever to come. I remember, like, because that was when I first started really collecting, because I had VHS, but I never collected like crazy. I had a decent amount, but the real collecting craziness came with me with DVD. So like anytime I could get a lot of movies, I'd be like, oh, I gotta get them. So like that, you know, I would love to like just build a collection up. So the fact that, oh, you buy a player, you get like 7 or 8 free movies with it, I'm like, oh, I can't believe that. I might have 7 or 8 free ones to put on my shelf. Even if they were not the greatest stuff, I was excited about it. But it took so many weeks upon weeks upon weeks for the things to come, and I kept on waiting. I was like, oh, these aren't gonna ever come. And I remember like I was just like trying to get as many movies as I could on DVD just so I could watch them. But you know, but I started out with VHS. You know, VHS was the first format that I ever had, and I always really liked getting stuff. I used to get like, you know, since I was a kid, when when I was getting VHS, I was getting like a lot of like TV shows and like stuff like Denver the Last Dinosaur and Popples and Care Bears and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really have tons of movies. I had stuff like, you know, Pee-wee and all those kind of things.
And a lot of people say that they like Blockbuster, they miss Blockbuster, say, well, Blockbuster was the one that put a lot of the mom and pop shops out of business. So I wasn't really a fan of Blockbuster, but I can see where they're going, and it was very important in a lot of people's youth. And I went there as well, but I stuck to more of the mom and pop shops. There's more of an experience there. Just everything really, even down to the smell. I mean, they all had this sort of like a musty smell to them, and going through all the aisles of all the different movies.
I remember earliest memories of watching every weekend, watching VHS, putting it in the rewinder, and I even remember...
I still have a rewinder.
Very early memories of like going to like the grocery store or like convenience stores and getting excited when they had a movie, and like knowing, like the one that comes to mind is I found Walk the Line at a grocery store and went, I know we don't own this, I'm gonna buy this real quick. And I was like 7.
The thrill of the hunt.
Yeah.
When you own physical media, you've got that connection to it. You know, it's in your collection, and there's that kind of connection with you, and that's like, I own that film. You know, I love the film that much that I own it, and I can watch that whenever I want. And that is the beauty. That's why I collect. That I can get hold of a film. You know, on the shelf they look amazing as well. I mean, these covers, these cover art. You know what I mean? These are just amazing. Look at this one. Look. They're just heaven. These covers are amazing. I'm drawn to VHS, I think, more than anything. But it's the covers that sell it for me. It's the artwork. It's the big boxes. You know, it's the smell. I'm straight back to the 1980s when you're breathing out smelling.
But I started out with VHS, and VHS was the first format that I ever had, and I collected a lot with VHS, and I had a decent amount, but I never had that many, because DVD came out when I was in middle school, and that was kind of, when I was kind of going out, and would go out with my friend, and we would, and friends and stuff like that, we would go places, and, and that kind of thing, and I feel like that was like when because I was able to start to walk to the mall, and there was a Suncoast Motion Pictures in the mall, so then I could go and like buy stuff then. And that was kind of like me going out more myself when DVD was around and DVD first came out, so I was kind of able to go out and buy stuff. And like anytime I got any money, if my parents ever gave me any money or I earned any money or anything like that, the first thing I would do was buy a DVD.
Nostalgia plays a huge part in a lot of my media. For example, this Terminator 2 VHS tape that's extremely beat up. My mom got for me, this came out in 91 or 92, if my memory serves me correctly, is 92, so I was 8 years old when I saw this in movie theaters. But she did check with my aunts and uncles, and they all told her, they gave the thumbs up to take me to see it. And this movie actually changed my life and turned me on to movies because of all the movie magic we see in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Made me fall in love with movies, and the way my life's trajectory changed when I saw Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and my mom knew it. And this was during the time, she got this for me during a time when movies weren't releasing. They would release at Blockbuster, and you can like rent for 6 months before they released on physical media. And she managed to get this from the Blockbuster right by her house. She had to pay $100.
I think nostalgia plays a big part in physical media. Yeah. I think it's being a nerd in general. I always say like I'm a movie nerd, because just being a nerd to me is not afraid to just show that you love things. And I love movies, and I collect movies, and like half of me buying movies is things I remember as a kid and being like, oh, this one movie I saw as a kid where this scene happened, and then hunting down what that is. You even have a fun story of a movie you remember as a kid and then hunting it down. And someone from Facebook being like, oh, what is this?
I do have that story, yeah. I watched a movie as a kid just like before school one day, and I never knew the name of it for years and years, and I posted it on Facebook. I posted everything about the plot that I remembered, and within 8 minutes I got a reply. It was Little Manhattan, starring Josh Hutcherson. But another big nostalgia one for me that I thought of, and I know you had an example too, big one for me is Hoodwinked, when we got this on Blu-ray, because this is my favorite movie growing up, and I had this in like a little case that I just found the disc somewhere, and all I could keep in was a little case, and I watched it so much I scraped it, like unwatchable. And so the fact that like this is re-released, like this was a big one. I know you had an example.
Yeah, just recently, like movies that I loved as a kid. A good example being Wild America is one of my most rented. I used to rent this from Blockbuster every night as a kid, or every week, and we'll watch it endlessly on VHS. And this just came out on Blu-ray just this year, and I was so happy because I was like, this is my childhood, and I have it on Blu-ray now.
I really think nostalgia has a huge part of the idea of me collecting physical media, because I feel like a lot of people who are younger these days, they don't have the interest in collecting if they didn't grow up in the idea of going to video rental stores. Because I feel like going to video rental stores was really what got me into the whole idea of having a collection. I remember some of my favorite memories were going to Blockbuster Video as a kid. You know, I'd go on Fridays after school. That'd be like the big thing. I would be like, oh, I'm going to go to Blockbuster Video and see what new stuff is out to rent. And a lot of times if I had a friend come over, we would go to Blockbuster Video.
Nostalgia is definitely part of it, where things that really meant something to you, that are in your heart, you know, can be represented in a physical, tangible thing that you can pick up and hold. I don't know if looking at the little, you know, image of a poster, usually not even the original poster, on Netflix has that same effect.
There'll be something, it may not be a great movie, but I'm just like, you know what? I remember growing up with that, and I'll just collect another copy of that film because I simply love it. Yes, nostalgia is big. I love it because it just embraces your childhood and all the things that you simply love. Especially my #1 favorite movie of all time is Predator, because I absolutely loved growing up watching Predator, watching Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's my favorite actor of all time, and even the Terminator series. And I have multiple copies of those movies, like Terminator, Terminator 2, Predator, all sorts of kinds. Like I have a VHS, steelbooks, DVDs, regular Blu-rays, 4Ks, you name it. It's all because of nostalgia. It's all because of that, because you just simply love it, and you, like I said, you embrace it. It's awesome. It definitely plays a huge role for sure, because it's like, do you need it? Yes, you do need it. You need to collect it, Dave. Go grab it. That's part of your childhood, and it brings back good memories. That's the #1 thing. It just makes you feel good inside in what you're doing with your life. And what more could you possibly ask from that, right?
Nostalgia does take huge part in my collection, liking my physical media. I remember that first time I ever bought was Back to the Future on VHS.
Yeah, I would say nostalgia does play a huge part into my collecting. I'm self-diagnosed OCD. Everything in here is alphabetized. Everything in here is, you know, organized by genre as well. I like to be able to find, you know, what I have. Keeping that in mind, if I'm able to display it, it's not necessarily hoarding. But, you know, I do kind of tend to pick things that are nostalgic to me. So when I say that, what I mean is that, like, anything that kind of frightened me as a child, like whenever I went to the video store, I seek out those titles.
Being younger, going to the video stores and seeing all the different artworks and everything, I actually like holding it in my hand. I like looking at the artwork and all the different...
Like a tangible movie.
Yeah, and looking at all the different, you know, variations. You know, it's enjoyable to me. So, yeah, that does play a little bit of a part.
I gotta say, it's nice to come in here and like just stand here and look around and, you know, kind of like window shop, if you will, what we're gonna watch.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid going to Blockbuster and all the mom and pop stores.
Yep, every Friday night we would go down to the rental store and pick out a couple movies.
Definitely nostalgia. Growing up, I loved movies. I didn't really, my family kind of moved around like every 4 years due to my dad's job. So, you know, being young like that, it was hard to make friends because you kind of knew you were going to be gone soon. You never knew if it was down the road or on the other side of the state. I never knew. So movies were something for me to get lost in.
Nostalgia definitely plays a big part in physical media collecting for me. Every Friday, my dad and I used to go to this video store called Video View in Palm Harbor, Florida. And we would do 48-hour rentals every Friday. I mean, that was a ritual that was like church to me.
Rent Halloween H2O tonight and go home happy. The face of good and the face of evil meet one last time in a fight to the finish. Halloween H2O, rated R restricted, guaranteed to be there at Blockbuster Video.
I would go through and kind of stare at box art for hours. I mean, I think anybody can kind of relate to going to, you know, Suncoast Video, Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, FYE, and just staring at cover art, features, and all that stuff, you could drop me off there as a kid, and you wouldn't need to hire a nanny. Like that did it for me. And there were all these movies that I wasn't allowed to rent. Like I would just fall in love with the cover art for Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, Leprechaun, Nightmare on Elm Street, and I always thought the box art was like the best part because I wasn't allowed to rent the movies. And it wasn't until years later that I like conned my grandparents into buying them for me. And little did they know that they should have. But it actually is probably one of the reasons why I ended up becoming a filmmaker, because those movies actually inspired me to want to make my own. And so when I rediscovered VHS as an adult, I got that rush of, oh my God, that's the box art that I was obsessed with. And I'd already seen these movies like hundreds of times, but there was something about owning that cover, that artwork in my house and kind of like front face displaying that really kind of got me reinvigorated again, like felt like a kid again. And so as an adult, I was like, I'll show you, parents. I've got adult money now. So I rebought like that every movie I ever thought was cool as a kid, whether I'd seen it or not. I went and rebought as an adult. And yeah, I don't know. There's something special about like analog video. It looks alive. And it's something that digital can't recreate, especially with horror movies. There's something about low quality video and sound that doesn't hurt the movie experience. It actually helps it. It's harder to see the killer, and you know, you hear like the warping sometimes of the music, and that's, you know, it's almost like when you play music on like a record player. It just has a completely different vibe, and I'm really glad that VHS is making a comeback now, and new releases are getting done on VHS. It's pretty sweet.
I grew up in the age of Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, mom and pop rental stores, when you could just go and get something. I always love that feeling. Go into the rental store. They have those shelves. All the VHS are facing artwork out, and especially if it was a new release, just looking to see if there was that VHS in that plastic case behind the original VHS case. And you get to that one, and there it is. Out of this whole rows of dozens of the same movie, there's that one. I always love that feeling of being able to find that.
This Halloween, Blockbuster Video has a special treat for your whole family. You can take home any of these great Halloween classics for just $7.99. Or rent 2 movies and get them for $3.99. Now, if that's not a reason to scream, what is? Make it a Blockbuster fright.
I think there's some nostalgia to it, but it's mostly a simple philosophy that I have as a filmmaker, which is it's simply this. You know, if you are a writer, you know, like a novelist or something, then you need to have a robust book collection. And every minute that you're not writing something, you need to be reading. You know, you need to know what all is out there, and thus, you know, how you can do something different. Same thing goes with filmmaking. If you want to be good, then, you know, you need to have a robust movie collection and, you know, have a wide film repertoire. And then when you're not writing a script or you're not shooting something, you need to be watching something, so that way you can get inspired and keep yourself in that good headspace at all times. I think that's very, very important.
I would say like the VHS is where a product is nostalgia, because that's what I used to rent at the video store. Most times I've got those, they just sit on the shelf and they collect dust, because I usually just use whatever's the top format I have the movie on. So if it's Blu-ray, it's going to be Blu-ray, and VHS is usually there just to look nice. And if I've got something on VHS that I don't actually have on DVD or Blu-ray, I'll just watch the VHS then, but it's pretty rare.
Nostalgia is part of it. It's not all of it, but it's part of it. When I was growing up, I would save up my money, whether it was mowing lawns or doing odd jobs, especially when I was younger, before I could actually get an actual job. And I would save up as much money as I could to go buy a tape. And I would go buy an old monster movie from the 50s or 60s, you know, Universal Monsters, or old sci-fi film, you know, or the big releases that would come out. I remember back then you could even pick them up in the grocery store, something like Jurassic Park or something like that. I'd go and, you know, snatch up that tape and bring it home, and you could have that experience of watching that movie that you saw in the theater, in your own home. And also there was a lot of films, that obviously you couldn't see unless they were just replaying them on TV and things like that. So being able to get a physical copy of that movie was just awesome back then, So I really think for me, it is a very nostalgic thing. I love walking in here and having that feeling of, a video store almost. And that was a big part of my childhood as well. Going to the video store on Friday nights, everybody's worked all week, been at school all week, so the family can go. We'd pick out a movie or several movies and bring them home and pop popcorn and watch them. And I feel like that's something that's like lost today, on the generation that we're in. A lot of people just will sit in their bed and stream movies. There's nothing wrong with that, but there was something about that just act of, as a family, going out together and picking a movie out. It was just spending time together.
Very nostalgic as far as my music collection is concerned. As far as video games are concerned as well, one of the main reasons why I collect for the Game Boy is not only because just the convenience of being able to take it on the go, but also the fact that I grew up with the Game Boy, so there's a lot of great games in there I grew up with, a lot of games that are very nostalgic for me, and also when it comes to, again, not so much the Game Boy Color, but there are some good nostalgic games on there as well. But when it comes to the Game Boy Advance, there's just a ton of awesome 16-bit games that have been ported over again, that were out for the SNES and Genesis that I also grew up with. So definitely nostalgic there. And of course, to an extent, nostalgia does play a part in the collecting of cinematic media. A lot of movies that I grew up with as a kid, and TV shows that I grew up with and whatnot, I have in my collection, of course. And I guess really when it comes down to it, I kind of got into collecting cinematic media because of nostalgia. Back when I first started collecting all this stuff, it was really just because I had sold off a big collection of something else I used to collect for, and when I did that, I had a few $100s in my pocket, and I was able to go out at the time and buy myself a DVD player and some DVDs.
I grew up in the 90s, and I distinctly remember going to Blockbuster and going to video stores and renting movies, and how big a deal it was to even have HBO or watch the movie of the week on TV and, put a VHS in the recorder and try to record that movie so you could watch it again later, which probably was illegal at the time, but nobody was really paying attention to that stuff. When a movie went on HBO, you popped it in, you recorded it, and, you added it to your collection.
Nostalgia plays a huge part in my collecting, probably the biggest part in my collecting, really, because, back in the day, we would always go to, ours was the movie gallery, which is where we would rent stuff, and my family would always go out there. My brother would usually pick up the video games, but I was always in the horror section, even though I was really scared of horror movies for a big part of my life. When I was a kid, I didn't watch horror movies at all, but somehow that me being scared kind of flowed into me being interested, into me loving it. And so even when I was really afraid of it, I would always go down that horror movie section and just, look at the covers, flip it to the back, and I would never read the part, but I would always just look at the pictures, and if the pictures looked scary, I wanted to watch it even though I was scared of it. So yeah, nostalgia is a huge part of it. I would go to my grandma's house. I remember I went to my grandma's house and she had Phantasm 1 and 2, and I would watch those all the time. Even though I was terrified of them, I would always watch them. And then one time, my brother had his Pee-wee football team over for his birthday, and my mom bought us Evil Dead to watch. And I've never been more terrified of a movie, and now it's my favorite movie of all time. It was really scary, and the scene where the tree raped the girl, my mom was trying to jump in the way of the TV, and all the kids tackled her, getting her away from the TV just so they could see the tree getting all over that girl, man, which is really weird when you think about it. But yeah, that happened. That's a true story.
And as a kid, I loved going to the video store and just discovering a new movie based on the box art, the artwork. And, sure, you could see the artwork, whatever, on Netflix or whatever. It's not the same. There was something nice about picking something up and, catching your attention and looking at the back of it.
Looking back at when DVDs came out, looking back at the Blockbusters and browsing the shelves and wanting to have that experience again, which just unfortunately doesn't exist, what I wanted to do really is create a library of movies and TV shows where if somebody comes into this room, they can go through the library and really look and maybe pick out a movie that they'd forgotten about, or pick something new off the shelf, or something really rare that maybe has gone out of print a long time ago, but and isn't on streaming services, and I have it in my collection. And so looking down the road 10, 20 years from now, that's what I really hope to have and hope to deliver, is sort of this archive of physical media.
I would say that nostalgia plays a huge factor in what I do. I actually have an ultimate goal of making a place look like a video store. I guess just to kind of remind me of the good old days, as you will. And I think that it's just very important to keep physical media alive today, just for the fact that it was something that was part of our past, something that we grew up on, that was so important to us. Like going to the video stores back in the day.
In my family, we didn't really own VHS. I mean, there was always, you know, you had like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, then you had a couple VHS in your collection, but I think my family, like most families, they just rented them. They were kind of narrow, but they were thick, and they were like this cheap plastic, and you had to deal with the VCRs and rewinding them. Obviously, no special features. Not a lot going on for sound. There just wasn't a lot to these. You just put it in and you press play, and you know the VCRs could eat the tapes and the tapes could get damaged. And it just, to me, it was never something I was interested in collecting. And I this is the only VHS I have, Bumblebee.
I think that nostalgia plays a really big part in collecting because, especially for horror fans, you know, we grew up watching movies in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when physical media was really the only option. So you had to buy the movie, essentially, if you wanted to own it. And so for a lot of us, we just never really stopped collecting. And part of, you know, still obtaining those obscure VHSs at thrift shops and flea markets sort of like brings back a warm, fuzzy feeling from when you were a kid and would see those freaky covers at the video store. You know, it's a little bit of a slice of still kind of keeping that alive. So I think that nostalgia is probably the essential reason why a lot of us still collect.
I collect physical media because it is just so much fun. You know, you get to go out and you get to find these movies. You know, either you've never seen them, you're excited to watch them, they have an actor you like, a director you like, they're part of a long-running series, and you get them, and it's weird, but it's kind of an addiction. Like, people get addicted to new movie releases, and you know, people get it a day early and they're excited. You know, everybody else doesn't have this tomorrow. I have it today, and you're like in this elite status, and you know, they're just so much fun to collect. You know, have that artwork in your hand, have that disc in your hand. If you have something like this, you know, you have extra stuff in it, and it's just it gives you, you know, a good feeling just to have it. I don't feel like digital media, even with its added convenience, you know, I can go on my computer and I can watch it almost anywhere, anytime. I don't have to store 4,000 discs. They're all just kind of floating out there on the internet. But I feel like that also has a lot of drawbacks. And even with having a good high-speed internet, I feel like a lot of times you have trouble with connections and buffering and downgrading. When I put this Blu-ray in my Blu-ray player on my TV, I'm gonna get the same exact quality every time.
When it comes to why do I collect physical media, I've always been the kind of person that loves the idea that if there's something that I really want to watch, I'm like, okay, I love that movie. I saw that movie in theaters, and I'm like, okay, I want to watch that thing. I can just grab it off the shelf and watch it. The idea of not being able to do that with some of my favorite movies and being like, oh, I have to search through streaming and hopefully I can find it, or oh, can I buy it digitally, and like all that kind of stuff, that's never been my thing. I've always been the kind of person who just liked the idea that if it's something that I really like, I like to have the film and like to be able to, and I'm one of those kind of people too who, you know, as strange as it is, and I'm sure other people who are collectors, sometimes they just like to go and look at their collection. They just take out the movies, look at them, and kind of like, you know how people are like who like scholar types with their books. They go look at their old books and look, and like to me, I'm like that with the movies.
I collect physical media because it's just I always, going to those movie stores, I always wanted it myself. Like, I wanted that movie store in my house.
It's always great to collect and get the stuff and have it. You know, I think it's just a cool thing with the artwork, to knowing that you have it, the history behind it, and the cool extras that those things come with. They get all around. It's just that's why I love physical media, and always will. I always like to promote that and portray that in my videos when I can. And I like to tell people, and hopefully they inspire them to like get stuff and to keep their collection. Don't sell their stuff. You know, keep it. This stuff is great, especially with the tapes. I love like my tapes. So my favorite thing is probably tapes. You know, just like the whole artwork and the whole thing of it. You know, I love it all though. Love it all. It's all fantastic. Blu-ray, you know, DVD, 4K, all that stuff is amazing. It's so cool.
I collect physical media. I actually wrote an article about this. For one, I love the tangible experience of it. Being able to have it, for some reason, makes me. It gives me a better watching experience versus just a digital copy of it.
Why do I collect physical media? Because here's the thing. With physical media like Blu-rays, DVDs, they have a lot of nice box arts, nice cases, such as steelbook, media book, or box set, limited edition, 3 discs or something like that. They're beautiful.
As for collecting them, as opposed to streaming them, I prefer that because certain things that you could get, I mean, like the ones I showed you before, and it's just a cool artwork. Very cool artwork. And those that stream it, you're missing out on little things like that. Plus, actually being able to hold it in your hands is very important. And it's a shame that a lot of people with the streaming age, they don't appreciate that I think that they're really missing out.
I also collect physical media because I want to be able to watch the entire movie without it buffering. With you know, digital movies, streaming services, there's no guarantee. If there's a storm outside or you have terrible internet, you're not going to get the true 4K UHD or Dolby Vision format.
The companies today that are putting out physical media are doing such a great job. They're finding lost treasures, and they're cleaning them and restoring them and putting them out with bonus features in beautiful packaging, sometimes bundled with t-shirts, and just making it so much fun for the collector. And I think that's great. And it's a better time for collecting now than it was 15 years ago or 20 years ago. So I'm really happy what I'm seeing out there. And, you know, I do my part to buy from all the companies that I like the product from and do my best to support them. And even if you bought one Blu-ray or one record or one DVD, you're helping. And I really appreciate the effort that a lot of the companies are putting in. And I'm seeing incredible product now.
My style as far as collecting is concerned has changed a lot. I only buy Blu-rays now, and I've been giving away some of the DVDs that I own to people and replacing them with Blu-rays. Of course, the ones that I really care about, I've been replacing them with Blu-rays. Again, to get that picture quality, to get that sound quality. So for me, owning those Blu-rays is kind of a passion thing. And again, to maintain my bank account at a certain level and be able to still do that, I limit myself a lot. Of course, I would love to have a huge collection, wall-to-wall, ceiling-to-floor Blu-rays, but it's a slow process for me. So right now my collection is by no means big or impressive or anything, but it's my collection and it's movies that I absolutely love in there, so it makes me appreciate it that much more. And I do look forward to growing it and having that wall-to-wall, ceiling-to-floor look eventually. But it's a slow process for me, and it's, you know, I am limiting myself to strictly movies that I either really love, really see myself, you know, watching it over and over again, and movies that I would be like, find myself dying to show it to other people, to share that experience with them. Those are the Blu-rays I gravitate towards buying now.
I like that, the tangible experience physically having the movie for me. It makes it a better viewing experience.
I actually collect physical media because I'm a collector, first and foremost. You know, it's just in your nature. I do like watching them, though, too. It's not like I collect and leave on the shelves. I love watching movies. I watch a lot of movies, so I love watching them. And I collect because a lot of the movies I buy and I'm interested in, you really just don't find other places. Just randomly looking over at the shelf, I'm sure a lot of these things aren't streaming. Like, is this movie ever going to be streaming? Maybe it is on Amazon Prime. It's on the Class of Nukem High 2, The Substitute. That's just something random on the shelf, you know, or a lot of this stuff doesn't stream. Now, people would say you could download it illegally, but then the filmmakers or whoever don't really get the money, or the companies, you know, there's an argument there to be made. But still, I like to have all these movies at my fingertips.
The reason why I guess I collect physical media is because I love having all this stuff that I love actually in my hands. I love owning all this stuff. Up until a couple years ago, you know, that wasn't necessarily something people really thought about, was ownership of movies or of video games or of music or stuff like that. It just seemed like the norm. Nowadays, that has completely changed. A lot of people have things digitally. They'll just digitally buy a movie, or they'll digitally download a video game, or they'll digitally download a new album from some band they like. And for me, I don't necessarily get that. It doesn't really work for me, mainly because also nowadays when you download stuff, a lot of it isn't like you download some file and you get to like, you know, burn a CD or burn it onto an SD card or something like that. And you actually kind of sort of have a copy of that. Now it's all just like in the cloud and it's stored somewhere else. And the main issue is at any moment that stuff can be taken from you or altered or changed. Like just video games nowadays. I hear so much about video games and how basically they're released broken. Like these studios know that the game they're putting out isn't complete. It isn't finished. There's stuff they want to do. So they have to release all these patches for it and stuff like that. When I grew up, a video game was what it was. If there was an issue with a video game, that's how it was. But I don't think there was a lot of issues with video games. I mean, occasionally, sure. I'm not saying every game that ever came out was perfect and there was never any issues or mistakes or bugs in them. But I feel like the companies really did put a lot of time and effort to make sure their games were perfect and not releasing them broken and then just figuring, oh, we'll just patch it later, because that just doesn't seem to make much of any sense to me.
I like having something that I own, you know, physically own. Even now, you know, you can order movies online, you can stream, you know, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. You have all that. You can download the movies and even on the internet. But it just does not feel the same. You have it, but it's on the TV, but it's just there. It's just there. And also, I go back to borrowing things. I remember growing up and someone was like, hey, Dave, I have this. Do you want to borrow it? It just wouldn't feel the same. It would not feel the same. I would take it. I'd be like, yeah, sure, like, let me watch it. But deep down inside, you know it's not yours at all, because you want it for yourself. You want it to hold it. You want to put it in your collection, on your shelf. You know, you can pop it in wherever you want it. And I feel like that's what it is with streaming. It's there. You know, you can pop it in whenever you want. You can watch it, but you don't fold it. You don't hold it. And I'll even till this day watch a movie and I'll take that steelbook and I'll hold it in my hands or like a chair next to me, and I'll just stare into it's like the steelbook. For example, it would be like a steelbook, and I'll just look at the cover art while I watch a movie. Not the whole entire time, of course, but I'll just like it because I like having it there. I like taking it out, opening it up, putting the disc in. It's not the same. It's not the same at all when you do it online or even borrowing it.
Why physical media is important to me is because I can remember a time when, you know, it's Friday night and, you know, my dad came home from work and we have nothing to do, and, you know, of course, you know, where are we going to go? We're going to go to the video store. We're going to load up on 5 movies that we're only going to watch 3 of them, and, you know, new releases, and it's such a cool feeling to do that as a as like a father-son unit, or even, you know, a family unit, and just go and experience making a selection together as a family. I mean, my dad would pick some, my mom would pick some, I'd pick some. That's probably why we had five choices. But you know, to physically go somewhere as a family and you know, rent something. I mean, you could buy something now, but I think that physical media always needs to have some sort of place in our hearts and a place in our lives.
The reason I collect physical media is I like to have the title in my hand for the movie I want to watch. I don't want to deal with online services. Not every movie I have in this collection you're ever going to find online. I like looking at the artwork. I like reading the special features. A lot of that stuff you're never going to see. The special features, you're never going to find them online.
I'm going to say it's a nice perk to come in here and walk in the room and like pick it and look at it.
You can get, you know, watch alternate cuts of the film. You can watch, of course, a whole host of special features, and generally the video and audio quality is better. And you have more control over everything. And plus, you know, the packaging, they can give you all kinds of great extras that streaming can't give you.
One of the biggest selling points for physical media to this day for me is going to the store, flip to the back cover, and see if there's a commentary track. When I was a kid, the first one I ever got into was Jason Goes to Hell. When Freddy's glove comes out of the ground and grabs Jason's mask in, I was like, I need to know more about that. So I flipped it on, and it was actually hilarious. Like the stories they told about young kids out of film school getting the reins to a franchise and being able to do what they did was really informative, and just got me into wanting to make movies. So I jumped into Kevin Smith's after that, and that all became my film school before film school.
You have them on the shelf, you can grab them, and for the most part, they're movies that you can't necessarily, at least the ones I get, you can't necessarily find them on your favorite streaming service. Now, a lot of people, for them, you know, their streaming services, that's all that they need. But what I've found with streaming is that, for the most part, what I'm looking for will not be on there. And if it is, then it won't necessarily be on there for all that long. You know, it can be on there for as long as the license runs.
I collect because I like, you know, the actual thing. I'm a collector, so I like the editions of things they put out. So they'll put out, you know, Arrow Video, for example, puts out some amazing special editions, or Scream Factory. You know, as a horror fan, I think that, you know, when I look at, you know, I watch a lot of YouTube videos and know a lot of other collectors. And when I see their collections, a lot of them are horror fans. So I think horror fans play a big part in keeping physical media alive, because there are movies that, you know, were shot on video or something like that from the 80s, obscure movies from the 60s or 70s that, you know, whoever thought would have a release, this royal treatment on Blu-ray. And there are a lot of movies, you know, that have gotten that, and it's because of the demand from collectors.
If you're trusting a company, a streaming service, to give you something to watch, then you're putting a lot of power into their hands, and, you know, you're sacrificing the ability to watch something that you want to watch when you want to watch it.
You know, streaming's been out for a while now, and there are obviously pluses to streaming. It's very easy to go on your TV, but I don't know, there's just something about putting that disc or that tape or whatever into that player and playing it, you know. And there are a lot of things, you know, on some of these streaming sites that the movie's there and then it's gone, and it's like, hey, I wanted to watch that movie, but it's not there anymore because maybe they've lost the rights or something like that. And I can come in here and pull a movie off of my shelf, and I own it. You know, that's not going anywhere. And I think that that's a huge plus to physical media.
When it comes to physical media, I'm a big fan of just owning something, having something tangible in my hand with or without new artwork. Of course, that's always fun, getting the slip covers and all, but just knowing that this content isn't changing. The biggest thing that I see happening with streaming sites in VOD, especially with VOD on Amazon, you see people having to bend to the criticisms and chop out some pieces of the movie, and you have all of these different versions floating around. When it comes to different streaming sites, maybe in one country it has an unrated version. Over here, they've cut out a couple scenes or had to alter the time just a little bit to fit some standards. And I'm not a big fan of that.
The main reason that I collect physical media is just because I've never really stopped. As a kid, I always spent my allowance and all the money I had on horror movies that I didn't have, and throughout my life it grew into this obsession of basically buying any horror movie that I didn't already own. And then about 4 years ago, actually, I used my collection to open up my own video store called Old School Video back in Nebraska. And so my collection had served as the entire inventory for the store. And then basically when I moved to California to pursue my filmmaking career, I had to give up most of my collection and only take really the essentials, the ones I just couldn't live without. And so since then I've sort of had to start rebuilding my collection again, but I have made a point to not go back and like rebuy the same VHS tapes I already had. If I'm going to rebuy a movie now, I try and make a point to make it like an upscale or a remaster, like a new collector's Blu-ray or something like that. But I definitely think I'll never be able to like fully stop collecting. And still, if there's like an old horror movie on VHS I don't have and I want, I'm definitely going to buy it. But I think that I'm a little bit past buying the collector's prices. A lot of the best horror movies go for, $200-300 on eBay. And for me, that's just ridiculous because I'm a fan and it really boils down to just watching the movie for me. So I'll pay a fair price for a movie that I really want. But I think that paying those types of basically scalper prices really takes the fun out of it, because then really it's almost just like you're doing it for bragging rights versus being a true fan. And I think that us fans will never be able to stop collecting. And I think that it shows, every time I do a new interview, my collection is different or bigger. And so it's definitely something that is fulfilling for me as a fan and is relatable amongst other fans. We can talk about our collections. There's Facebook groups that people share their collections and photos of videos and stuff like that. So in a sense, today it's become like a form of unity for horror fans as a whole.
I also collect because I firmly believe that physical media is just the best way to watch a movie. It's honestly, in some cases, even better than going to the movie theater, in my opinion, because you're in the comfort of your own home. You have a very high quality HD or 4K transfer. You have excellent surround sound quality. I mean, most of what they put out now on discs rivals that of most theaters.
Well, how do I think physical media can survive today with all of the things going streaming and all that kind of stuff and video on demand? I feel like really what keeps DVDs and Blu-rays around now and keeps people buying them is having really special collector's editions of things. For example, there's always, like, for the big studio films, like the superhero films, they have a number of different editions. Like they have a steelbook edition of the film, then they have a digibook edition, then they sometimes have one that has an exclusive slipcover, or sometimes they have one that has an exclusive bonus disc, which has an exclusive like making of or deleted scenes or things like that that are only available on that edition. As well as I feel like the smaller labels, like the labels like like the independent labels like Shout Factory, with their Scream Factory line, and Arrow Video and Vinegar Syndrome, and a lot of these smaller companies are releasing lesser known horror films and more obscure films. I feel like that's really what keeps collecting around, is that the fact that you're getting much more lesser known movies, not kind of stuff where you could go and find these things on streaming.
I don't really trust the online streaming services, because even if they say that it's yours, I feel like maybe they could take it away at any time. And if I've got it on a physical format, at least I know unless someone steals it or the house burns, it's not going anywhere.
There's gonna be a day where that cloud is going to go away. Something's gonna fail. Someone's gonna buy it out. The company's gonna go under. There's no security with having a digital library. I mean, just imagine all these movies behind me. If this wall was empty and all this was on my phone, and I was so excited I could show my friends, look at all these, we can watch any of these movies right now, I can throw it up on my TV. And then one day I wake up and I hit that app and it doesn't open. Or I hit that app and it says failed. All my stuff is gone.
As much as I hate to say it, because it kind of hurts people's wallet when you do it this way, I think the more limited edition stuff and the stuff with the limited edition slipcases and all that's probably the main thing that's going to sell in the future, because the product's already kind of a niche product, and I feel as time goes on, it's becoming more and more niche. So you might have to sweeten the pot a little bit to keep people buying it, like limited numbered stuff and all that. I don't really know, because it's getting kind of harder to sell movies these days. So it's whatever, you know, you can do to kind of spice it up. Maybe it's little extras that come with it. Maybe it's a slip case. Maybe it's, I don't know, alternate artwork. But you're going to have to do something to spice it up, because as the numbers say, most of the time people's not buying stuff just for the sake of buying it anymore.
Physical media is always going to survive in a world overrun by VOD platforms. Fans of movies are always going to want to hold something in their hands, own the movie themselves, watch the special features, not be told when the rights exist on what platform and what not. Like if you want to watch Kevin Smith's Dogma right now, there's no streaming rights to it. So if you got it when you did, that's the only way you're going to watch it, or you get it marked up from eBay. So yeah, you're going to have to pick and choose which streaming platforms you want to pay for, because there's hundreds out there now. Or deciding, you know, how many exes you want to break up with to keep their logins. Don't log out. You know who you are.
Basically, with VOD taking over, the only way that physical media is going to be able to really be a viable medium is going to be the collector's editions. Companies like Vinegar Syndrome and Shout Factory that put out, you know, the super remastered versions of movies with all the special features and deleted scenes and stuff that we haven't seen before, especially for horror fans, is going to be the attraction to keep buying those things, because a lot of that stuff you can't get when you just download the movie or you're streaming it. Especially for older movies, you know, like, they're exclusive to Blu-ray. Like, I know, for example, The Legend of Boggy Creek just came out and it's only available on Blu-ray. It's the only way you can see it remastered. So things like that, I think, are going to keep fans wanting to always purchase and collect physical media.
Because when Cyberdyne takes over, okay, and all the net goes down, I'm going to be sitting on top of all the bones with my collection. Joke's on them. And you get to argue about power, them shutting the power down, but I will still be throwing box art of heavy Titanic VHS tapes at robot heads. I am the John Connor of this world.
They can survive and are thriving thanks to boutique labels like Criterion Collection, Scream and Shout Factory, Vinegar Syndrome, 88 Films. There's so many boutique labels out there, and they spend a lot of time with the packaging. They give you really great artwork. They give you tons of extra features, which is actually scarce if you look at a lot of main studio titles that release on home video today. The extra features have gone, you know, very sparse, and but these boutique labels, they pack them out tight.
I think there'll always be a place for physical media. You know, it's something that, like, who would have thought that vinyl would make this glorious comeback? Or, you know, there's even like a VHS comeback, and there's, you know, some audio cassette comebacks, although that one's a little less than the other two. But vinyl records especially, part of that is because, well, it's an analog format, and no matter how good digital recording is, vinyl still does sound better. It just sounds more organic, and they haven't really been able to fully replicate it yet. And I think with physical media, it is a digital format, but still you do not have to worry about internet outages or, you know, poor quality or whatever.
I got a job at Blockbuster Video while they were still around, and there was nothing like going into Blockbuster Video to work on a Friday or Saturday and just having a store full of physical media surrounding you, having people ask you, like, what movie do you recommend? Do you have the new Adam Sandler movie? Like, do you have this movie? It was just an excellent experience to be surrounded in a store with physical media. You would have a family make a trip out to the store on a Friday, have everybody pick out a movie to rent, and hopefully the box was behind the artwork, which meant we had it available. That is, you know, that was physical media to me.
You know, when it's physical, it's archived. You know, your hard drive can crash, right? You could have all these, you know, digital codes loaded, and then your hard drive crashes and they're gone. You know, with physical media, you have that piece of history, so to speak, that you own, and it's actually there. You know, it's not air, right? And you can keep it and go back to it anytime you want to.
Video on demand, you're still paying the same price.
Yeah.
For a movie, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize, you know, with digital codes being so prevalent, is if you buy a digital movie, you're still paying $20 for it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you buy a movie on Blu-ray, you know, it could be $20. You're paying the same price, and it also comes with the digital.
Yeah.
So you're getting physical and digital for the
for
same
the price
price.
of one.
So I think that's why, you know, I don't think physical will ever leave for that reason.
But you can you get a context about a person by what they keep around them, right? And what makes the cut, so to speak. We only have so much square footage in our house. We only have so much time we can dedicate to our hobbies and our collections. And what survives is kind of like building a definition of about you as a person. And so that's why I think physical media should survive. There's actually been a couple court cases about this regarding an iTunes media library, and it has wonderful advantages. I use it myself. I stream music, absolutely. But you can't, when you die, the music you buy on your account does not exist anymore. You can't gift that to the next generation, right? There's no method to do that because they are, in essence, they are just on loan. You can lease the right to listen or watch or what have you. That's what you're paying for on these services.
Well, I think the biggest reason that physical media should continue to be produced is the censoring of movies on streaming services, and then also with the fact that there's so many streaming services that's just so costly per month. Like, you know, if you have Netflix, Disney, HBO, Shudder, DC Universe, Prime Video, Hulu, you know, that's potentially like $70 right there if they're all $10 a piece, you know?
Physical media to me is an escape. Movies and TV, I've always been in love with. Ever since I was a young kid, I loved movies. I loved watching movies. I loved watching Saturday cartoons, and then stuff like Doogie Howser and the Wonder Years when I was a younger kid. I just always loved the idea of film and television, and it became my escape. So physical media, to physically own a copy of something, to be able to watch my favorite movie at any point in time, to watch the same movie over and over, to own it, to not have to wait till it came on TV, hoping that it would be on HBO or Prism that month, and to pay the extra money. That wasn't the case. I had started collecting physical media. This way I could watch that stuff at any point in time, which is a big thing to me.
Splash is streaming. It's on Disney Plus, but it's censored. It is censored. Now, does it change the whole movie? No, but if you want to see her butt, you need the DVD. You know, I'm not a horny creep that I'm like, ooh, I want to watch the version where I see her butt. No, but that's the original movie. And, you know, with movies that you either buy on iTunes or Amazon or that are streaming, you don't really own them. They could constantly change them. Is it easier to just do the streaming than turning on the player, opening this up, putting in the disc? Yeah, but this is the actual version. This is unchanged. So that's why this is important. I am glad to have this.
Digital versus physical media is, you know, digital, you see what you will, it's all fine, it's convenient to just throw it on there, but how are you going to have the digital copy signed? Sometimes it's just nice to geek out and get your favorite films signed by the creators. I mean, how's Pee-wee going to sign your digital streaming copy? So I hope that physical media stays around forever. As you could see, I'm a big fan of having tangible products surrounding me. It just stimulates my brain. So, long live physical media. Let's get a special edition of Howard the Duck.
Recently, there was an altered version of Back to the Future Part 2 on Netflix. Now, they've since changed it, but let's talk about Star Wars. I mean, they're constantly changing it. I mean, with movies, they're a part of history.
And if you have the love for it, then all of this, you know, it's nobody can take it away from you.
I never knew until I started YouTube how many people actually did collect. I thought I was, one of the rarities and stuff. I always knew I had more movies than most because that's what I spent most of my money on, but I didn't realize how many people there are actually still continuing to collect and stuff. And one of those deals, me myself, I find a movie and it's just, I guess this goes back to the nostalgia factor, but it's one of those deals where you pick up a movie, you get to look at it, you look at the cover art and all this stuff, you look at just everything, you can read about it. You don't really get that same deal. I mean, they give you somewhat of a description on streaming platforms like Netflix or Vudu or something like that, but it's just not the same being able to pick up a physical copy.
But I'm one of those kind of people out there who absolutely loves physical media, and I want to encourage you guys, if you guys are fans of physical media, don't sell your collections, don't get rid of everything and go, it's all on streaming, because remember, it's not. It can be taken down and removed at any moment from there. If you guys are a fan of physical media, please keep collecting, please keep going out there supporting the films, support the indie films, and just kind of keep the whole thing alive, because I just hate the idea of thinking that there can be a time in this world that we will never see a physical disc again. And the fact that you could go in a store and never see something like this again, to me, that's true sadness. I don't want to see that happen. I want to see the format continue to survive and be around for years to come.
Yeah, I think it's just something that if you want things that are off the beaten track, if you want more for what you pay, and you want to make sure that you're in control of your viewing experience, then physical media is the way to go. And, if you're like me, it's like it can be kind of a source of comfort to know that, the films that inspired you, the things that matter the most to you, they're right there with you all the time and always will be. It's important.
I'm never going to stop collecting. I love collecting, and I just hope they keep cranking out these titles, and I'll be buying them, and I know a lot of other people will, so... yeah, I think that physical media is going to be alive for a long time.
I think physical media needs to continue because there's always going to be people like myself who want to own the movies and have them on my shelf.
So when I started working at Blockbuster, of course, there was no Netflix, there was no Amazon Prime, there was no Shudder, Hulu, Vudu, any of that. People did solely rely on physical media to watch movies. And, I think that's what sparked the joy in most people as far as owning VHS, DVDs, Blu-rays. But as those streaming sites get bigger and bigger, and especially right now, I feel like those streaming websites are dying to acquire like big name movies for people to subscribe to them. I feel like the joy in owning a physical copy has kind of faded in most people. But I think what we don't realize is how much work goes into making a movie, and buying that DVD, buying that Blu-ray, buying that 4K really helps those people behind the movie scene, and I don't think we realize that. Some of these movies are very low budget movies, and they rely on physical media to kind of get that income back into their pocket. So I think giving support to the directors, producers, actors, it feels great. And honestly, like I said, this is kind of a thing that brought people together. And if physical media dies, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be kind of weird, because it'll be part of the 80s, 90s, early 2000s and on erased, and I don't want to see that happening. We already lost Blockbuster, that was enough.
I've never actually even redeemed one digital code in my life, and I have probably over 1,000. Call it a waste. I call it loyalty.
Some of the big reasons why physical media continues are so we don't have movies disappear. Because if you ask anybody the carryover days from VHS to DVD, tons of movies disappeared. A lot of them people don't talk about. And then DVD to Blu-ray, a lot of people don't talk about. And Blu-ray and all that stuff to streaming, even more. How many times have you heard people complain that this is not streaming, so it's basically impossible to watch? I don't have that problem. If I love a movie, I get it on a hard format, and I can watch it whenever I want. And also, I can browse in my own room. I can walk around and find a bunch of titles that I forgot I had, and stuff that I wouldn't see on a streaming service. That's why physical media is important, because for film, like obsessed people, for cinephiles, they're not just into the mainstream stuff. They're just not into the stuff that's streaming. That kind of dictates a lot of things, what people are, the big trending things are the stuff that's streaming. But a lot of times there's so many movies that are obscure.
And with a lot of these companies out nowadays, like Arrow or Vinegar Syndrome, or there's tons of these companies out nowadays that are taking a lot of them really more obscure titles that have previously only been on VHS, and they're bringing them to the masses with all kinds of extras, with like different aspect ratios to them, and fully restored. And I highly suggest supporting these businesses and checking them out. Don't let streaming get in the way of this, because if you don't support these companies, they're going to go the way of Blockbuster or the mom and pop video shop.
I think that it is important that physical media continues to be produced, because it's sort of like the last thing we have from the old era. Movie theaters are dying with VOD coming out, just as much as physical media sales are. And there's a whole new generation that doesn't understand the thrill of going to a store and digging through all the titles and trying to find that one that you couldn't find anywhere else. Things weren't just at your fingertips then. And I think that it's like a pastime that is sort of being kept alive right now. And I don't necessarily think that for society as a whole, it's extremely important to keep physical media, but I think for the well-being of the fans and for nostalgic purposes and just tradition, I think that as a whole, keeping physical media around is something that brings happiness to a lot of people. And again, something like I mentioned before is like with the special features, that's going to be lost. You're not going to be able to get like Uber director's cuts or deleted scenes or stuff like that when you do streaming purchases. So I think that it's really, really important to keep that stuff available for the fans that are willing to pay for it. I mean, it's only in the best interest of the companies to have their films available on all mediums possible, including physical media, for as long as possible moving forward.
I would argue that physical media is more important today than it almost has ever been, simply because of censorship. Like on streaming services and VOD, there's so many different cuts of different movies floating around that, I just want what was intended. Maybe Blu-rays have multiple versions, and you can watch the theatrical, you can watch the unrated, you can watch the rated. There's all types of different options. Whereas streaming services, you never know what you're going to get. They could chop something out completely because maybe it's not PC enough for today's audience. Censorship isn't something that the horror community really wants. I'm gonna be honest. You have all of these up-and-coming filmmakers that are pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable, and you see a lot of these smaller films just not making it to certain platforms because Amazon won't accept them or Vimeo shuts them down or something like that. You'll see a lot of indie filmmakers and distribution companies doing more like hand-to-hand sales and going to conventions than they will online, simply because their films aren't being accepted everywhere, or at least in the deliverable that they wanted to give it to the audience. And that's the biggest issue, is, again, the censorship. So physical media is just as important as it was back in the day, if not more important. So I genuinely can't see me stopping collecting DVDs or Blu-rays anytime soon.
I think physical media is going to always be around the same way that movie theaters will always be around. There's a ceremonial ritual to going out on Friday night, buying popcorn, sitting down in front of a 120-foot screen, and just forgetting about all your problems and just being entertained, jumping into another world. That same thing comes with physical media. You go out, you buy a movie, you bring it back, you're excited to watch it that night. You throw it on, you make popcorn, and you make a night of it. I think we've kind of taken the convenience for granted to, I got nothing to do on my phone, sitting in bed, pop on a movie for 20 minutes. All right, I'll watch the rest of it later. Just that easy access has almost kind of ruined the commitment that we make when we go into watching a movie. And I think that physical element gives us that physical connection to the entertainment.
you should be the one to decide what you want to watch and when you want to watch it and in what quality. So, it's more power to the people, basically.
So obviously I have really strong feelings on why physical media is king and why this should just continue to go on, and why streaming just isn't going to work, and why someday there are going to be a lot of very upset people when they realize that everything they paid for is gone, or not what they used to have, or has been altered, or for some reason they can't watch it anymore. I feel that's going to happen someday. Maybe not now, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life, you're going to one day regret buying all this stuff digitally.
Like, to me, the idea of never having physical media again, I can't see myself doing that. I just see myself as somebody that, if I want to watch something, I go, well, I can watch this anytime I want. Where otherwise, if I didn't have it physically, I'd be like, is it on streaming? Can I find it somewhere? And then, you may have to buy it again. So, I just never see myself going, I'm done with DVDs. I'm done with Blu-rays. I'm done with all this. I feel like it's kind of like, this is going to be, I'll be a real old man with my collection, and everyone will be like, what is all this stuff? What are these discs? What is this shiny metallic thing? And I'll be like, that's a DVD. I see myself as that kind of person that will have physical media till the end of time. For me, I never see myself going, I'm done with this. I'm going to be fully digital and that's it. I'm going to convert all my collection to digital. That's not me. I know some people are into that idea, but for me, I'll die with this stuff, honestly.
I collect weird, obscure horror films, and for that reason, it's amazing. You're getting, companies like Arrow and stuff putting out these really obscure horror titles that aren't so obscure now. They're kind of in the mainstream. They've been thrust in the mainstream because of that. I think physical media will continue. It will live. Because of these niche companies putting out these films, it will live. It's going to be here forever. I'm never going to get rid of my collection. My biggest worry, I think, with physical media, which is really weird, like I said, I'll always keep it. Always keep my physical media, But my biggest worry, I think, is like with VHS. I've got so many VHS, tapes. So many tapes. I have now probably about 10 VCR players, because I don't want them to run out. They're not making them anymore. So I buy and buy things, because I don't want there to be a time when I cannot watch a VHS. When I can't pick up the video then and think, you know what, I'm going to watch this on VHS. I don't want that to happen. So I think with even DVD and Blu-ray, what I'm doing now, I'm buying up DVD players, I'm buying up Blu-ray players, because I don't ever want there to be a time that I cannot play my physical media. And I can see that happening in the future. So I think if you are a fan, if you've got a lot of physical media, buy up these players, have a few backup just in case anything goes wrong. Because we want to watch these forever.
All these right here, I own all of these. These are mine. These will be mine until the end of time. Till the day I die, I'll still be watching all my Blu-rays and 4Ks and DVDs and Laserdiscs and whatnot. But who knows if everyone else out there will be watching the titles they bought on their streaming service.
Memories of video shops. I mean, God, when I was a kid, I used to go there all the time and try to pick out these horror movies, mainly horror. I mean, I'm into all kinds of different movies, but a lot of it was horror, and it was always tough to pick out because I would judge it by the cover too. I would see Frankenhooker, Basket Case, and there were so many great movies. I'd be in there for hours, and I really miss those days. Now it's just streaming and ordering online, so memories of the video shop I'm really going to miss. I wish they can come back. I mean, those days are long gone, but you can still get your hard copy of the videos.
I'm a huge, big-time collector of physical media. I enjoy collecting VHS tapes, DVDs, and Blu-rays. Come on, let me show you my collection. Within these collections, I have all genres of physical media. I love collecting because it brings me lots of joy and entertainment. I know that at any moment I could pop in a DVD or VHS and escape from reality.
I'm a movie buff, so I always wanted But how many times have you heard people say that might not be into movies as much as you are, they miss the old Blockbuster days, they miss the old, going into a video store on a Friday night or weekend or whenever you used to go in there, being able to walk in there, look at all the movies that are there, look at one, like I said, find something that has an interesting, cover art, pick it up, and being, maybe you read the description and you're like, that's not for me kind of deal, or anything like that. You don't get the same feeling. And at that point in time, a whole generation, I think, is lost to what that was.
That's how I got into this community, because I'm one of you guys. We're all together. We're one big family. We're one big happy family, and I love physical media. You guys love physical media, and that's why we're close. That's why we're... It's wonderful.